My name is Miguel Alonzo. I'm 42 years old, a former war journalist turned university lecturer in Quezon City. I didn't expect to die that day, but I did. It was a quiet April afternoon, just another class. I remember standing in front of my students, trying to explain the ethics of truth during conflict. My chest hurt a deep twisting pain, and then without warning, everything went dark. No time to speak, no time to scream, just gone. I didn't feel myself falling. I didn't feel anything at all. There was no more weight, no heartbeat, no breath, just a strange awareness that I was still me. I saw my own body lying on the ground. I saw students panic. Some cried. One of them screamed my name, but it was like watching a movie with the sound turned off. I couldn't touch anything, couldn't move. I wasn't part of the world anymore. Then I saw it, a light. It was small at first, like a distant star in the middle of endless darkness. But it wasn't cold. It was alive, warm, gentle. It didn't burn. It invited. And then somehow I heard it my name. Not from a voice with lips or breath, but from deep within the light itself. Miguel. It called me. I didn't understand how, but I began to move toward it. Not with feet. I had none. I had no body, just presence. But I moved anyway, drawn by something stronger than gravity. As I got closer, the light grew brighter, warmer. And then, he was there. Jesus. I don't have better words. He wasn't an idea or an icon or a Sunday school story. He was real, radiant, more alive than life itself. I didn't see him with physical eyes, yet I saw him. I didn't hear him with ears, yet I heard him. His presence overwhelmed everything. His eyes, if they were eyes, looked straight through me, not with judgment, with love. A love so pure, so complete, that I felt everything false inside me start to dissolve. And then he spoke. Miguel, you don't belong to this world anymore, but you are not finished. There are things you must see, and truths you must carry back. His voice was soft, but it thundered in my soul. It wasn't angry, it was full of purpose. I didn't question him. I didn't plead. I simply listened. Because when Jesus speaks, you don't argue, you follow. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't dead. I was being awakened, not to a dream, but to the realest truth I had ever known. As soon as Jesus spoke those words, the light around me began to shift. I felt myself being lifted not through space, but through something deeper, through layers of meaning of reality. In an instant, I was no longer just standing in his presence, I was watching from a high place. And what I saw next, it shook me in ways I can't explain. It was Earth, but not the bright blue sphere we see in documentaries or from satellite images. This was darker, not in color but in spirit. I saw cities, New York, Manila, Tokyo, Johannesburg, each one pulsing with a strange, sinister energy. And then I saw them, the threads, like black veins running through everything. Streets, buildings, homes, even churches. They moved like something alive weaving through governments, media stations, universities, even pulpits. And everywhere they touched, there was deception. News anchors smiled as they delivered polished lies. Headlines twisted the truth until it no longer resembled anything real. Influencers preached self-worship disguised as empowerment. Politicians stood on stages with practiced compassion, shaking hands while making deals behind closed doors that fed only the system, not the people. But the worst part, the part that made my soul ache, was the church. Some churches looked alive, packed seats, lights flashing, hands raised high. But Jesus showed me what was hidden beneath. Many were hollow. They preached comfort over conviction, success over surrender. Their sermons were TED Talks with Bible verses sprinkled in. No one talked about sin. No one talked about the cross. There was no call to repentance, only to relevance. And people loved it. I saw pastors building empires while their congregations starved. Starved not just physically, but spiritually. I saw worship leaders chasing fame, branding their music like corporations selling songs about a Jesus they barely knew. I saw believers, millions of them, scrolling through their phones during prayer time, reposting inspirational quotes, but never opening a Bible. They looked awake, but they were sleeping with their eyes open. They sing about me, but they do not know me. Their mouths are full of praise, but their hearts are far. They follow trends, not truth. And still, I love them. I call them, I wait for them. But the time is short, Miguel. The time is very short. I felt his grief. It wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. Like a father watching his children run toward fire, thinking it's light. Then he opened my eyes further, and I saw it. The strategy behind it all. The enemy wasn't chaotic. He was calculated. These threads, the lies, they were part of a system, a web, a perfectly designed trap to keep people numb, distracted, busy. I saw families arguing over politics while their children grew up spiritually starved. I saw people chasing money, validation, digital fame, while their souls withered in silence. Even in churches, I saw divisions over style, over race, over vaccine policies, and demons dancing in the background, feeding on every bitter word. And yet, the people didn't see it. They laughed at parties, planned vacations, watched viral challenges. They posted verses but refused to forgive. They celebrated sin and called it progress. They labeled truth as hate and called deception love. And all the while, the black threads tightened, slowly, invisibly, like chains wrapped in silk. This is not just corruption, Miguel. It is captivity. And they do not see the bars. They do not see the prison. Because it looks like freedom. It sounds like wisdom. But it leads to death. Then I saw something that broke me. A young girl, maybe 16, lying in bed scrolling through social media at 2 a.m. Her feed was full of beauty filters, perfect lives, body comparisons, voices telling her she wasn't enough, and she cried herself to sleep, believing the lie. Next, I saw a young man in college listening to a professor mock faith and slowly abandoning what he once believed. I saw mothers trading prayer for productivity, fathers working themselves into the grave, never realizing their kids just needed time. I saw pastors compromising truth for popularity, and all of them, all of us, were being lulled to sleep. And I realized I had been one of them. I had spent years writing truth for a world that didn't want it. But I had stopped praying, stopped listening. I was busy, too busy to kneel, I used to say. But now, face to face with truth himself, I saw it. The world wasn't just distracted, it was drowning. I turned to Jesus, speechless. All I could whisper was, "Why did no one see this?" Because they stopped seeking me. And without me, the eyes go blind, the ears grow dull, the heart turns to stone. The light around us dimmed slightly, not in strength but in tone. I knew the vision was far from over. What I had seen was only the beginning. The world wasn't just deceived, it was positioned, ready for something far worse, something already creeping on the horizon. The vision shifted again. In one breath, I was standing above the earth, and in the next, I was inside it, inside, the moment everything unraveled. It began in a room I didn't recognize at first, somewhere dim, secure, cold, like a war room tucked beneath concrete and steel. There were maps, monitors, silent alarms blinking red, people in suits. Some I knew, world leaders from headlines and summits. Others were unfamiliar, but I could feel their power in the air they breathed. No one smiled, no one joked. It was tension thick, raw, like the air before a storm. I heard words thrown across the table, sanctions, retaliation. No confirmation, false flag. We have no choice. And then it happened. Not with a roar, but with a whisper. A misread signal. A drone strike that hit the wrong target. Or maybe a calculated move disguised as an accident. It was never clear. What was clear, devastatingly clear, was what came after. Like a match dropped on dry leaves, the world ignited. Alarms, phones ringing, screens flashing in Washington, in Moscow, in Beijing, in Tel Aviv, in Tehran. I saw generals stiffen, ambassadors freeze, orders given with trembling hands. Within minutes, alliances that had simmered for years boiled over into declarations of war. Then I saw it unfold in real time on the ground in the air across seas. Jets screamed through the skies of Europe. Battleships cut through the Pacific with purpose. Troops mobilized with terrifying speed. Civilians ran not toward shelters, but toward the unknown. Children were pulled from beds in the middle of the night. Mothers packed bags they'd never finish closing. Men held back tears as they kissed their wives goodbye, not knowing if they'd return. It was chaos, but not the kind you see in disaster movies. This was precise, orchestrated, engineered. I saw cities darken not from bombs, but from silent strikes. Power grids collapsed in seconds. Entire regions blacked out. No internet, no phones, no banking. Just silence and fear. Supermarkets stripped in hours. Hospitals overwhelmed and then abandoned. Air raid sirens wailing over the cries of children. And still, the missiles hadn't even begun to fall. The media, what remained, tried to spin calm. We are monitoring the situation. Stay indoors. This is temporary. But I saw through the feed into the eyes of the anchors. They knew. The script couldn't hide the terror in their faces. This wasn't temporary. This was collapse. I watched protests erupt in major cities, London, Seoul, New York. At first, peaceful, then violent. Looting spread like fire. Governments scrambled to control the narrative. But truth leaked through every crack. People turned on each other, not because they were evil, but because they were scared. I saw a man shoot another over a gallon of gasoline in a California suburb. I saw crowds trample elderly women to reach a shipment of rice in Manila. I saw families forced out of shelters because they didn't have the right code. And in the middle of it all, churches burned. Not all, but some. Places once filled with worship, now targets of blame division or just senseless destruction. Then I saw the front lines. In the deserts of the Middle East, in the jungles of Asia, in frozen landscapes I couldn't name. I saw soldiers barely adults holding rifles with shaking hands. Some prayed, others just stared into the void. Drones hovered overhead like vultures. Missiles screamed silently through the night. Battles were fought not only with guns, but with code. Cyber weapons took down communication hubs. Nuclear silos were targeted, hacked, hijacked. This wasn't just war. It was apocalypse written in pixels and ash. I turned to Jesus still beside me, his face steady but sorrowful beyond words. This was never my will, but pride. Pride always leads to ruin. I warned them, I whispered, I wept, but they silenced the prophets and mocked the truth. And now they reap what was sown. His voice wasn't angry, it was grief, holy grief. And I felt it deeper than bone. A sorrow not only for the dead, but for the dying dreams, the shattered families, the silence that followed each explosion. Then came something worse. I saw nuclear weapons, but not unleashed. Not yet. I saw fingers trembling over buttons, governments torn between restraint and retaliation. One misstep, just one, and the fire would be final. I saw leaders hiding in bunkers, cowards who preached peace while planning war, and all the while, demons moved in the shadows, whispering, feeding fear, twisting minds. I saw them lean into the ears of commanders, fanning the flames of suspicion and rage, and their laughter was hellish. And suddenly I understood. This war wasn't just between nations. It wasn't about oil borders, revenge, or defense. It was about souls. It was about setting the stage, setting the world on its knees, bruised, broken, begging for someone, anyone, to bring order. and someone was already waiting in the wings. Just when I thought the vision couldn't go any deeper, the world below me faded, like mist burning under the morning sun, and something else began to rise. Not with thunder, but with weight, a shift in atmosphere, a vibration I felt in my very soul. I wasn't looking at Earth anymore. I was being shown what was behind it, above it, around it. Reality cracked open. It was as if a curtain had been torn in two, and beyond it I saw a realm more real than the physical, a place not bound by time or gravity, where movement was light and will was power. There, in that dimension beyond dimensions, a war raged. Not like the wars of men. This was holy, eternal, cosmic. I saw angels, not the gentle figures on Christmas cards or paintings with pastel wings. No, these were beings of fire and authority. They moved like thunder wrapped in light. Each one glowed with purpose. Their swords burned not with destruction, but with clarity. Wherever they moved, the shadows trembled. These were the warriors of heaven. And then I saw the enemy, not horned monsters or cartoon villains, but shapes that slithered, crawled, twisted. They carried no light, only a hunger. Their forms changed constantly, sometimes like smoke, sometimes like beasts, sometimes like men, but always evil, cold, deceitful. They moved like corruption personified, and their goal was not chaos, but conquest of souls. They clashed, not randomly, but with terrifying precision. The angels defended what looked like unseen boundaries over homes, over cities, over individual people. The demons pressed in hissing with rage, trying to breach those spiritual lines. And somehow I knew this battle wasn't happening somewhere far away. It was happening right now, everywhere, over all of us. Then Jesus let me see more. He didn't speak, but my understanding opened like floodgates in my mind. Every decision made on earth, every act of love or hate, every prayer or curse affected this realm. When someone whispered forgiveness in the dark, light erupted like lightning and strengthened the angels. When someone surrendered to sin or gave in to hatred, the demons grew bolder, pushing forward with venom. I saw it play out. In a small apartment in Makati, a mother knelt beside her son's bed, praying over him while he slept. Her voice was soft, weary, but full of faith. In the spirit realm, her prayer became a blazing wind. An angel nearby lifted its sword with renewed power, driving back a demon that had lurked at her window. In contrast, I saw a man alone in a dark office, watching things on his screen he thought no one would see. With each click, a door opened wider. A demon crawled closer, not with force but with permission. And I understood. This war wasn't just influenced by us, it was activated by us. I had always believed in free will, but I had never seen how weighty it really was. Every time a child chose kindness, every time a believer chose to pray instead of panic, every time someone said, "Jesus, help me through tears," something shifted in the heavens. You matter more than you know. Your choices echo through eternity. The unseen realm is not distant. It is shaped by your obedience, your worship, your faith. Suddenly, I was taken to a battlefield unlike anything before. It was above a city, maybe Cebu, maybe Chicago, I couldn't tell. There were angels surrounding a cluster of homes. Their wings were wide, their swords drawn. Demons tried to invade, twisting through the smoke of sin and distraction. And there in one of those homes was a teenager on his knees, crying, praying, alone. He had no idea his prayer was fueling a war, but in the spirit it was like a cannon blast. Light shot from his room like a flare. The angels surged forward. The darkness recoiled. Then I saw churches. Some glowed with light, small, simple places where people worshipped in sincerity. Their praises were like incense that strengthened the angels. But others looked beautiful on the outside. Massive auditoriums, LED screens, stage lights. But spiritually, they were dim. Their songs echoed but carried no weight. Their messages were watered down, carefully crafted not to offend. And in the spiritual realm, no angel stood guard. No glory rested there. Instead, I saw demons sitting quietly in pews, smiling, undisturbed. My presence does not follow performance. I go where I am welcomed, not where I am marketed. I was breathless, overwhelmed. I thought I had understood prayer, worship, holiness. But now I saw they weren't rituals, they were weapons. Real ones. And the war wasn't waiting. It was raging around families, schools, churches, nations. And yet, hope. Yes, in the middle of the fury, I saw hope, bright as lightning, fierce as fire. People, ordinary people who stood firm, who praised in pain, who forgave what the world said was unforgivable, who held on to Jesus even when the world mocked them. And with each act, the angels grew stronger. This war has already been won, but the battle for hearts continues. I am raising up warriors not with guns, but with prayer, not with power, but with purity, not with rage, but with righteousness. I wanted to stay there, to fight beside them. But Jesus had more to show me. Much more. The spiritual battle was only one layer. What was coming next would change everything. The war had brought the world to its knees. Nations burned, cities fell, economies collapsed. There were no more superpowers, only shattered governments grasping for control. Hope was in short supply, and into that silence came a voice. Calm, confident, clear. It didn't shout. It didn't beg. It offered exactly what the world had been craving: order. At first, he was just a man behind a microphone. Charismatic, intelligent, fluent in every major language. He stood before ruins and promised not revenge, but rebuilding. Not power, but peace. And the world listened. I watched his face appear on every screen: phones in refugee camps, makeshift TVs, in broken down malls, even church projectors. His name became a chant, his image a banner. People called him the miracle man, the solution, the one we've been waiting for. Even skeptics gave in, tired of fear, hungry for something, anything that looked like stability. I saw world leaders, those who remained, gather around him, not as rivals but as followers. They signed treaties under his direction. Borders reopened, markets stirred, humanitarian aid flowed like never before. He spoke of unity, of global citizenship, of moving past outdated religion and tribal wars. And people loved him for it. But I felt it before I saw it. There was something beneath his words, a coldness behind the charm. His peace came with a price, but no one saw it yet. This is the deception I warned you about. Not every light is from heaven. Not every voice of peace carries truth. He will not come as a monster. He will come as a savior, wearing the language of hope, but holding the chains of bondage. I saw the signs. He didn't demand worship at first. He didn't call himself God yet. He offered technology, a new way forward, a system that would prevent war, eliminate poverty, and track every resource. It was presented as innovation, salvation through data. People called it the mark of restoration, a simple, sleek implant just beneath the skin of the hand or forehead. Without it, you couldn't buy food, couldn't enter safe zones, couldn't access healthcare or digital currency. At first, it was optional, then encouraged, then required. I saw families torn apart. A mother in Manila weeping as her son was denied medicine because she refused the mark. A farmer in Africa dragged from his field for selling vegetables off-grid. A teenage girl in California arrested for hiding unmarked refugees in her basement. The news called them dangerous dissenters, enemies of peace. And the churches? Oh, the churches? Some folded immediately. Mega pastors praised the system from their pulpits. They said it was what Jesus would want: unity, prosperity, safety. Their worship became performance. Their sermons, government approved, and their crosses were replaced with his emblem, an elegant symbol that meant nothing, but promised everything. But not all bowed. I saw small gatherings hidden in alleyways, forests, abandoned warehouses, people holding hands, whispering scriptures, praying in the dark. They had no money, no access, no protection, but they had fire in their hearts. I saw miracles happen among them. Food multiplied, fevers broke, doors locked themselves when the soldiers came. These were the true church, the remnant, and they were being hunted. These are my beloved. They do not follow the crowd, they follow the Lamb. They know my voice, and they will not trade me for bread. The impostor didn't just tolerate their resistance, he declared war on it. He blamed them for instability, accused them of spreading fear, of clinging to ancient superstition. The media joined in. Talk shows mocked them. Former Christians denounced them. Some even betrayed their own families, turning in those who refused the mark. I watched a young pastor executed in front of his congregation in Romania, his crime preaching Revelation 13. I saw an elderly woman in Quezon City beaten in the street for refusing to scan her wrist at a checkpoint. I saw children orphaned because their parents chose Christ over comfort. And yet, their eyes burned with peace. Their deaths weren't defeats, they were declarations. But the impostor wasn't finished. He began placing statues, giant digital icons of himself, in every major city. Not as gods, he said, but as symbols of global progress. But I saw it. The demons dancing in the shadows of those idols. I saw people bow, not because they believed, but because they were tired. And he knew it. He didn't need to force worship. He just had to wear them down. This is not the end, but the great sorting. Wheat from weeds, truth from imitation, love from fear. What they choose now will echo forever. The world had fallen under his spell, and I knew what came next. He would offer one final illusion, one final false light before everything broke open. The storm was not over, the battle was not done, but the clock was running out. They were hunted like criminals, not because they stole or killed or incited violence, but because they refused to bow. The remnant, the true church, those who wouldn't take the mark, who wouldn't sing praises to the impostor, who clung to the name of Jesus when the world traded truth for comfort. They didn't hide in cathedrals anymore. Those had been seized, turned into distribution centers, state-run sanctuaries, or media halls, where the new leader's image was projected in golden light. The sermons, once filled with scripture, were now filled with slogans. Together we thrive. One voice, one future, obedience is peace. But in the cracks of society, under floorboards, in forests, in old warehouses and broken down subway tunnels, I saw them, worshiping, whispering hymns by candlelight, sharing torn pages of the Bible like treasure, lifting hands with nothing but air above them and glory all around them. They didn't have microphones, no lights, no live streams, but heaven listened. I watched as a group gathered in the dark basement of a forgotten house in Pampanga. A young man led them in prayer, his voice shaking but sincere. They had no bread, no water, but they had faith that dripped from every word they spoke. Outside, soldiers passed by. Inside, angels stood guard. These are my sheep. They hear my voice. They do not fear the fire, for they know who walks with them inside it. I saw miracles, not the flashy kind, not the stadium kind, but real ones. A sick woman healed after a whispered prayer. A child finding food left mysteriously at a locked door. A home untouched after neighbors were raided. The world called it coincidence, but I knew it was provision. They were not perfect people. They were broken, trembling, many still doubting in their own hearts. But they had made one decision, the only one that mattered. They chose him, and because of that, they suffered. I saw a family in rural Georgia kneel together as armed officers broke through their home. The father held his wife's hand. The daughter clutched the Bible. The boy recited Psalm 91 with shaking lips as they were dragged away. But they didn't scream. They didn't fight. They sang. Their song became thunder in the heavens. I saw a group in Lagos, stripped and imprisoned in a flooded cell, still praying for their captors. I saw a man in Seoul beaten until his bones cracked, but his eyes never left heaven. In every city, every continent, the faithful were tested, branded as traitors, paraded as examples, executed as threats. And still, they endured. They are not forgotten. Every tear is counted, every cry is recorded, and every life laid down for me will rise in glory. But the persecution wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Families turned on each other. Neighbors betrayed neighbors. Some believers, once bold, began to question. Did God really say not to take the mark? Wouldn't Jesus want me to survive? Maybe this peace isn't so bad. And that's when I saw it. Churches that looked alive but had died. They still met, still filled chairs, but their sermons had no power. Their pastors praised the new system. They quoted Jesus, but didn't follow him. Their crosses were symbolic, not sacred. Their prayers were scripted, not surrendered. People gathered, sang, gave money, but left unchanged. And in the spiritual realm, I saw demons walk among them unafraid. No angels, no glory, just performance. Not all who say, Lord, Lord, belong to me. Many preach my name, but have never met me. The wide road is crowded, but the narrow road leads home. Then I saw something I will never forget. A line of believers, young and old, kneeling in a public square somewhere in Eastern Europe. They were given a final choice: take the mark and live, or stand for Christ and die. One by one they refused, and one by one they were executed. But their faces, peaceful, radiant. I saw one young woman smile as the blade came down. I saw a boy lift his hands. I saw a crippled man stand for the first time just before his soul was taken. Their deaths were not ends. They were beginnings. As each one fell, I saw light explode from their bodies, light that raced into the skies like comets, light that stirred the heavens, light that echoed in eternity. These are my overcomers. They did not love their lives unto death. They are my bride, clothed in white and ready for the wedding. And just when I thought the vision had shown me enough, the sky began to change. It didn't turn dark, it tore, like a veil being ripped from the highest heaven. Something was coming. No, someone. And the world, what was left of it, was about to see what all of this had been leading to. The sky didn't just darken, it tore, like fabric splitting from end to end. Reality itself peeled open. And through that wound in the heavens came light. Not the kind that flickers or blinds. This light didn't come from the sun. It came from eternity. I felt it before I saw it. The earth paused. Every cry, every war, every broadcast, every breath held. And then he came. Not the gentle teacher from children's books. Not the broken figure on a cross. No, he came as a king. Jesus, riding on clouds that moved like armies. Dressed in light, crowned with glory eyes, burning with a fire that knew every secret. His voice thundered without sound. His presence broke every wall. Every force of darkness recoiled in terror. And yet, to the faithful, he was joy itself. The underground believers I had seen, the ones hunted and crushed, now lifted their faces. Their tears returned to their eyes, but not in sorrow, in awe, in relief, in pure, aching worship. They whispered his name, but it roared like oceans. Jesus! Jesus! He did not come alone. Behind him flowed millions. Angels like lightning, saints clothed in radiance. The martyrs, the persecuted, the children who had died in secret prayer, the elderly who had knelt with no one watching. They were all there, alive, glorified, triumphant. And the impostor, the Antichrist, was revealed for who he truly was. I saw him try to stand surrounded by armies holding every weapon the world could offer: drones, missiles, artificial intelligence beasts born of science and sorcery. But they trembled, because even demons bow at the name. Jesus didn't raise a sword, he spoke. It is finished. And just like that, it ended. The impostor's power shattered. His image collapsed. The technology that bound the world dead in an instant. The mark erased. The statues turned to ash. The armies fell to their knees, weapons slipping from their hands. I saw angels seize the Antichrist and his false prophet. I saw the shadow behind them, Satan himself, screaming in rage as he was bound in chains forged by justice, not metal. Cast away, cast down forever. The war didn't last minutes. It lasted a breath. Because when the king returns, there is no debate, no resistance, only truth. And then a great silence, followed by singing. I saw it. I heard it. I felt it in every fiber of who I was. The earth began to breathe again. Waters flowed where there was drought. The skies turned clear. Trees stood upright. Animals returned. Children laughed. Not just nature but creation healed. And above it all his throne, set not in marble but in majesty. I saw people walking with Jesus, talking with him as one talks to a friend. They didn't worship out of fear, they adored him out of love, pure, eternal, undeniable. There was no more pain, no hunger, no war, no death. Every wound was closed, every tear was wiped, every promise was fulfilled. Behold, I make all things new. I wept because I remembered the fire, the pain, the persecution, the silence of the true believers who died with only prayer on their lips. But now, I saw them rise in victory, and every scar became a story of glory. Then Jesus turned to me, and he said one last thing. Now you've seen, go and tell them. Tell them I am coming. Tell them I still save. Tell them there is still time. The vision faded. The light dimmed. And just like that, I was back, lying in a hospital bed, a nurse shouting my name, machines beeping, people rushing, but none of that mattered. Because I had seen him. I had seen the end and the beginning. I had seen the truth behind every lie. And I had seen love, unshakable, unstoppable, eternal. This is not just a story about death. It's a warning, a vision, and above all, a call to return. Jesus is coming back, not as a theory, not as religion, but as King. And the question is not if, it's are you ready? If this story stirred something in your heart, if you feel the weight of what's coming, if you know deep inside that the world is heading somewhere we can't ignore, then don't leave without responding. Leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Say Amen if you're choosing to stand for truth. Subscribe to this channel, Pinoy Faith Stories, where we share more visions, warnings, and testimonies like this. Not to entertain, but to awaken. Because you are not alone. And the time is now. God bless you. Stay faithful, stay ready, and never stop believing.